Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the hopeful elect of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indian, and Haitians. Gotta give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, the Most High, the Heavenly Father. His Hebrew name is Yahweh, not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Jah, not Yah, not Ahaya. It's Yahweh. His only begotten Son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christus, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua. It's Yahweh Shai. So got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rikah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well. And a sincere salutation to all the Arkin, pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hopeful elect. And shalom to the Outlaws who are listening and learning, the few sisters who are listening and learning. I'm Isaiah from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another lesson in truth, facts, faith, and edification, another daily edification, Lord's willing, is be edifying. And this is the fall of Babylon the Great. The monetary system of this place is weakening, is collapsing. The monetary system, the infrastructure, the economy is collapsing, man. The dollar is devaluing to nothing. Lord's will is be edifying.
Okay, hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and I want to welcome you watching us from all over the United States and all over the world, whether you're watching us on regular TV or on the portable app. So, we're going to be drilling down on the spike today on COVID-19 cases, also on the dispute between the United States and the International Criminal Court, and on a place in Seattle that's been turned into a perpetual protest zone. But we're going to begin with another example of the United States being challenged.
Lord willing, this be edifying. This is for educational purposes only. This is for educational purposes only.
More than 100,000 of you have watched and commented on the story that we did earlier this week about China unloading part of its share of the U.S. debt that it owns, right? It did so because it believes that the United States dollar is about to be horribly devalued because of what the Fed is doing by printing so much money seemingly out of thin air. They're probably right. The U.S. dollar will undoubtedly at some point be worth less and may eventually be pushed out as the only world currency, probably by China, maybe in the next 10 to 15 years.
Now we know in the scriptures, as it tell you in Revelation 13 and 16, he cause of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. The RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast, will be the one world currency. See this whole thing, they are collapsing the dollar so they can usher in the new monetary system, which is the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast. This is what they're doing. But this is the Lord playing chess with these devils, man. Okay? This is the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, playing chess with these devils, man.
But here's today's development. It appears that there's another player in the world stage that's making a similar move. Russia is now sending signals of no confidence in the U.S. dollar as well, and it's doing so in a different way. See, the Russian parliament has now officially cleared the way for the country to double its supply of gold. What it's essentially doing is it's removing the barriers, including taxes, so that Russia can accelerate its gold buying spree. The Kremlin has made de-dollarization, as it's been called, a long-term priority. It's been going on since 2013. But now, given what's happening in the United States economy, seems to be doubling down, is Russia. So where is this leading? And what is this eventually going to mean for the U.S. and for the global economy? We're going to break this down for you right here on the News with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it's time to do news again. Here's our list of the questions that we think you'll be asking tomorrow after watching our newscast today. Can the United States dollar survive the challenge from China and now from Russia? Why is COVID-19 resurging throughout the United States, and what's it doing to the markets? Why is the United States in a spat with the International Criminal Court? Look, there is no question that China's ultimate goal is to compete with the U.S. dollar as the world's exclusive currency. It is doing so because, well, because it can. It's that big. Its economy that large. Russia, on the other hand, has been pushing to de-dollarize now since 2013 or so. It is doing so because it feels that the U.S. and Europe has given them no other choice, what with all the sanctions and the other acts of hostility as they see it. But now, Russia, seeing what is happening to the U.S. economy, is doubling down and doing so in gold. Here's that story from Moscow.
This is Isaiah chapter 13, verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. Who was the them? Babylon the Great, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. This is Isaiah 19 in verse 1. It reads, the burden of Egypt, Babylon the Great, North America is spiritual Egypt. It tells you that in Revelation 11 chapter. The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. From what? Them intercontinental ballistic missiles. Verse 2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. What are they talking about? The Russians against the Americans. Okay? The Russian Idumeans against the American Idumeans. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight, everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to their idols, and to the charms, and to their and to them that have familiar spirits, and to their wizards. That's why the Lord said in Isaiah 47, stand now with thy enchantments, but they're not going to work. And we see it now. Many brothers talking about this yesterday. Their enchantments are not working anymore, man. Okay? They are failing miserably. Verse 4, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, Yahweh of hosts. So what we see going on is, you got the Egyptians against the Egyptians, along with China and Iran. And as the scripture tell you in Ezekiel 38, that Russia shall be a guard to the other nations, man. As a matter of fact, let's read that. Ezekiel 38:1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, behold, I am against thee, O God. Don't get it screwed. I'm against you too, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, meaning put them in that old spirit, that old Soviet Union spirit, and that old Cold War state. And I will bring thee forth, and all thy armies, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company of buckler and shield, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company. They are a symbol unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Russia is going to be the guard to all the other nations, man. And Russia is doing the same thing that China did.
With RT correspondent Yulia Shapovalova.
Nowadays, Russia's domestic refineries use approximately 30% of their capacity. Among the main factors hindering the development of the country's precious metals market is the import VAT. Now, Russia's lower house of parliament plans to adopt a new law. According to it, 20% VAT on imported precious metals will be scrapped. As a result, the volume of gold production in the country is expected to double. Nowadays, about 300 tons of gold are processed in Russia annually. According to the latest data published by the Ministry of Finance, in 2019, gold mining in the country increased by more than 9% compared to the previous year. Plus, with no 20% VAT on precious metals imports, additional volumes of raw gold will come from Africa, Central Asia, and Latin America. Therefore, more precious metals will be refined in the country in the future, and that will positively affect employment of the population, since an increase in the production capacity will require an increase in the number of jobs. The move is also expected to create an investment gold market in Russia, according to experts. As a financial instrument, gold is protected from inflation, and at a time of geopolitical risks and financial instability due to the coronavirus pandemic, the metal could be an excellent substitute for traditional investments in US dollars. At the same time, since April 1st, 2020, the Bank of Russia has suspended indefinitely the purchase of gold on the domestic precious metals market. According to experts, that decision was expected. First, in more than 5 years, Russia's gold reserves have more than doubled. During all those years, Russia was getting rid of US government bonds and buying gold with the proceeds from that. Secondly, now there is simply no additional money in the budget for that due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Basically, during the crisis, as the price of gold is high, its purchase apparently is no longer a priority for the Bank of Russia. By the way, as of May 1st, 2020, the country's gold reserves accumulated by the central bank were worth $126 billion. That's more than 20% of the total number of foreign reserves of the country. We all know gold prices have been growing drastically recently. Just a year ago, an ounce of the precious metal cost $1,300 at global stock markets. Now it's more than $1,700. Currently, the US has the most gold reserves in the world, more than 8,000 tons. Russia's fifth, with nearly 2,300 tons. That's nearly 74 million ounces of gold possessed by the country's central bank.
See, what's going to happen? It doesn't matter that they had the most gold. It doesn't matter. Because these nations is going to destroy Babylon the Great, man. Just Obadiah 1 and 7. See, when you got the confederacy that these guys set up, that these devils set up, and if they turn against you, what is your goal compared to what they got? Nothing, man. Your military would be nothing. So you set up a confederacy that's turning against you. That the scriptures say. Obadiah 1 and 7. All the men, it say all the men of that confederacy. And you can read about all the men of that confederacy in Psalms 83rd chapter, man. Okay, it say Edom, Moab, Ammon, Gabal, Hagarenes, Ishmael, and the Philistines, man. All the nations that join to you through the UN is going to turn. Obadiah 1 and 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. It said, they that eat thy bread. You made all the nations adapt the petrodollar. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. So you made all these nations adapt to the petrodollar, get down or lay down by the force of the sword. And everybody got down with you because you had the biggest military. Well, the Lord say he's going to cause these nations to come up against you. Jeremiah 50:9 reads, "For lo, I will raise a cause to come up against Babylon, an assembly of great nations from the north country." I just read in Ezekiel 38. Gog and Magog, and who's coming with them? Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, Gomer, and Togarmah. Okay? All these nations, man. An assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. The arrow shall be as of a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. And it say what? Verse 10, and Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. And what Isaiah said, they will not regard in your silver and gold, man. Isaiah 13:17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. They don't care about your gold and silver. They're going to take you down with the force of the sword. Starting with who? The Russians, your brother, the Egyptians against the Egyptians. I had to play this too.
All right, hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and we want to welcome those of you who've been watching us from all over the world, whether you're watching us on regular TV or on the portable TV app. We're going to begin with a story that could send literal shockwaves through the global economy. According to the Chinese news agency, China is going to begin recalling or selling off the U.S. debt that it controls. Now, this, by the way, would be a very poignant message that it's sending about the U.S. economy, both from a pragmatic standpoint and from a psychological standpoint as well. The message that it would be sending to the rest of the world. China owns more of our debt in the United States than just about any country in the world. So why would they be doing this, right? Well, think about it. So just today, as we reported here, as breaking news about an hour ago, the U.S. Federal Reserve came within moments of being pressured into lowering interest rates below zero. In the end, they pulled back from taking them into negative territory. But even that buildup of what they might do was significant enough. So China is worried that when you combine what the Fed has already done in buying back bonds and pouring billions into banks, in printing $2 trillion to pump into a sputtering economy in the United States, what you have is the makings of a weaker dollar. In other words, as experts describe it, the U.S. currency will be devalued. And what China is essentially saying is, we see a storm coming, and we're going to start getting out of the way, while the getting out of the way is good. So, what does this really mean for the global economy?
And that the scripture say, man, every nation shall flee to their own country, man. Okay? The Arabians shall not pitch tent here no more, man. Neither Moab, neither Ammon, man. They're going to leave. Because this place is crashing. The economy, the infrastructure is done, man. The monetary system is collapsing, man. The scriptures is what we live from, man. This is our meat, our bread, our water, man. These scriptures, man. And the Lord, as Romans 15:4 say, the scriptures were written 4 times ago for our learning, that we through confident pace in the scriptures might have hope. And everything that's written in these scriptures is coming to pass, man. These devils, their kingdom is collapsing, man. And there's nothing they can do about it. Because this is the chessboard of the Heavenly Father Yahweh, and he's moving these pieces, Salakia, he's moving these pieces drastically, strategically.
Right? Who wins? Who loses? And how is this going to affect you, me, the rest of us? We're going to tackle these questions here on the news with Rick Sanchez, where we look.
If you're a 2/3 or a heathen, it's going to affect you by death, okay? The same must know it after death by pain, man. That's how it's going to affect 2/3 in heathen nations, man. Death.
Believe it is time. Yes, it is. To do news again. All right, here's the list of the questions we think he'll be asking. What will happen if China sells off the U.S. debt? Can a protest go too far? And should you be fired for how you protest? And what is the history of barricades and law enforcement around the White House? But we begin with what is a blockbuster of a story. China is finally going through with it. They're beginning to sell off more than $1 trillion it owns of the U.S. debt, our debt. So why are they doing this? And what does it really mean? We're going to drill down on all of this, but we're going to begin with a RT Boom Bust host, Ben Swan, and this explainer.
The U.S. Federal Reserve's endless printing of U.S. dollars is resulting in a new consequence from one of the largest holders of American debt. We're talking, of course, about China. According to new reports, China, which is the second largest foreign creditor, has decided to not wait for the devaluation of the U.S. dollar and is actively selling American debt. Keep in mind, during the first quarter of 2020, the Fed printed more than $2 trillion, with more on the way. Last year, China got rid of $110 billion in U.S. treasuries, and within just the past few weeks, they have dropped another $10 billion. Aside from the massive printing of U.S. dollars, another major issue for the Chinese has been talk of the Fed moving to negative interest rates. Now, as of Wednesday afternoon, the Fed announced it will not pursue that policy of negative interest rates at this time. But the discussion of negative interest rates has been going on for several months now. According to Standard Chartered economists, the federal fund rate at minus 0.5 or even minus 1% will result in a significant drop in government bond yields, which would facilitate Washington's debt servicing. The concern from the Chinese is that those negative interest rates will not benefit the value of the dollar, and that U.S. currency, as a result, will inevitably become cheaper. Now keep in mind, American debt is a widely held and extremely desirable asset in the global economy. Whatever debt China does sell is simply purchased by other countries. For instance,
look at all that worthless paper.
China reduced its holdings of U.S. treasuries
a bunch of worthless paper, man.
$180 billion. Despite the scale, the sell-off did not significantly affect the U.S. economy.
All that worthless, all them worthless C notes.
In 2020, well, there are three major differences. Number one, we're talking about the incredible amount of liquidity the Fed has poured into the market just this year alone. Number two, an attempt by the Fed to go to negative interest rates. And then number three, the issue of a global pandemic that has devastated economies around the world.
This is James chapter 5 and verse 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. It said, who miseries? Ye rich men. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. All your expensive $1,000 suits means nothing to the Heavenly Father Yahweh. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the days of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doeth not resist you. You devils.
For the news with Rick Sanchez, I'm Ben Swan.
Ben's good enough to join us live to take us through this. He's going to be joined with by George Galloway. So what we're doing with both of these guests is we're offering you the business perspective and the political implications of this story. Ben, I want to begin with you. Look, I just called around some of my sources, and when I asked them why China was doing this, what they told me is that China is tired of seeing the dollar as the world's only currency, and that this is just the beginning of them, China that is, creating or competing and making their own currency at some point in the future. Can you confirm that and explain that to us?
All the nations are tired of Babylon the Great. ruling them with their petrodollar, man. All the nations.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. The one thing I would push back on is the fact that they said this is the beginning. I think you can go back 5 years, 6 years, and say the beginning really began when China, Russia, India, and South Africa began working together as BRICS, and Brazil began working together as the BRICS nations. That was the real first move, I think, to say we're going to get rid of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. China doesn't like it, and other nations don't either, because it puts them in a politically disadvantageous position and economically disadvantageous position. And so what we're seeing right now is the continuation of that effort, and certainly China is not going to hold US debt forever. They're going to sell it off when they can. As we mentioned in the piece, in the past they've done this, but never to the extent that they're pushing for it now, and certainly not at a time when the U.S. is doing so much to devalue its own currency.
You know, we are not a business show. We are a news program, The News with Rick Sanchez, which is why we see this particular story as one with vast geopolitical implications. Can you take us through that, George Galloway?
Yes, of course. The dollar was king for a long time. People don't like to be ruled by foreign kings, and they are looking for ways out of it. There are various ways.
And like he said, the dollar was king. It was king. Not no more, man.
Out of it. Russia and China, for example, have been very big buyers of gold over the last few years, making sure that they have their own reserve. And of course, if the US government and the Treasury are cheapening the value of the dollar for the reasons that Ben ably outlined, then that means that the debt that they are holding is worth less to them than it would be hitherto. So it's a vote of no confidence in the United States' long-term economic hegemony. And it's a vote of confidence amongst countries like China, preeminently China, that they are able to do it themselves. They don't have to be under the hegemony of the US dollar, which is being used for political purposes. That hegemony is used all over the world for political rather than economic purposes. And the other countries are getting tired of it. China and Russia see America nowadays as a hostile actor. In Europe, they see it as an actor not nearly as friendly as it used to be. And for all these reasons, it will be harder to shift the debt if China starts to sell it.
Ben, let me go back to you with something my sources told me when I was speaking to them this morning. They said, while China wants to do this, they're not going to be able to do this for some time because they don't have the infrastructure. And I think what they mean by infrastructure is the bond market that's capable of moving, let's say, $1 trillion, which the United States can do, China cannot do right now. Are they right?
Well, I think they're right, but I think China is doing a pretty good job, and I say good not necessarily because it's good for the United States, but certainly it's good for China. China is moving in a different direction here. What they're essentially trying to do is move into a position where they can put themselves ahead of the United States by developing relationships with other nations, by developing relationships with infrastructure in other nations, loaning money to other nations, becoming a bank to the world in a way that the U.S. has not been in the past. And that's a huge part of this. So as we move forward, one of the things we have to consider is what is the U.S. going to do to respond to this? The U.S. has been frustrated for some time by the concept that essentially China is going around the world and loaning money to other nations for infrastructure builds. They've been moving in this direction. So that's why I'm saying this is a step in a staircase that essentially gets China and the rest of the world off of dependency on the US dollar as a reserve currency. And I gotta say this, Rick, it's important for American viewers to understand the significance of this, because we have no generations of Americans left, really, essentially none left, who remember a time when the US dollar was not the world's reserve currency. Wow. We have become to the point of assuming it's always been this way. It's only been that way since after World War II, and yet we act as if it is a foregone conclusion that it will always be this way, and it very well may not be. George?
And that's facts, man. That's facts. Why has it been that way since World War II? Because of the harbingers of death.
greetings from all our lawgivers, our idiots, reach into my cup. Read the 29th scroll. 6 words.
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn, alone among God's privates. He kills for sport, or lust, or greed.
You see, it said he kills for sport or lust or greed. Let's read it. Proverbs 10 and 23 reads, it is as a sport to a fool to do mischief, but a man of understanding have wisdom. See, it's a sport to them, like he's reading.
Yea, he will murder his brother to possess his brother's land.
See that? He will murder his brother to possess his brother's land, man. He will murder his brother to possess his brother's land. Did not they do that in 70 AD? They did that, man. Luke 21 and 20. The Lord said, when you see Jerusalem come past with armies, flee into the mountains. They did that, man.
Let him not breed in great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home and yours.
What do? They destroy, man. Habakkuk 2 and 5. It say, yeah. Also because he transgressed about wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire is hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people.
Shun him. Drive him back into his jungle lair, for he is the harbinger of death.
Habakkuk 2 and 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him? Which they doing right now. Russia and China mainly. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that laden himself with thick clay. Shall they not rise up suddenly against him? Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them, because thou hast spoiled many nations. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land and of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be divided from the power, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and have sinned against thy soul. And that's Babylon the Great, the Egyptian against the Egyptian. One more precept and I'm going to close. This is Haggai 2 and 8. It reads, the silver is mine, and the gold is mine, saith the Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah of hosts. Lord, when it's edifying, gotta give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Rikah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well, in the sincere salutation to all the ark and pushing the truth and believing in truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hope for the elect. And shalom to the walk who are listening and learning, the few sisters who are listening and learning. The Lord wasn't edifying till next time. I say shalom, wah, abad, babal.